as we've talked about before, market research is how companies determine what people want, what they need, and what they should do next. The way that they determine that is they go out and they ask people, what do you want? What do you need? What's missing in your life? Or what can we do to make your life better in whatever way? So that's what market research is. It's done in a variety of ways. Sometimes you see surveys, sometimes you hear about focus groups, sometimes they're done virtually where they just, are on like a Zoom call and they ask you some questions. Sometimes we even go to people's homes and we spend a few, 30 minutes, an hour, a couple of hours with them. There are lots of different ways that market research is done. Market research is not clinical research or clinical trials. So sometimes you will hear things like, someone is in a clinical trial for a drug, for example. That is different than market research. Market research is about giving opinions and thoughts. You might try like a new flavor of a drink or some Cheetos or something like that, but typically, or you might try a beauty product. That's part of market research. That is what market research is. And so the way that it works is that these companies will do things like focus groups, or they'll do surveys, or they'll do other different ways to try to get your opinion. And then they pay you for that time that you have done or that you've given them, and for the opinion in which you've given. And so some people ask, is it a scam? No, it is not a scam. It is very much necessary and needed, and companies love to do market research because it saves them money in the long run, since they find out what you need before they actually put it in market. How much you are paid varies based on what people are asked to do. So there are some types of studies that are free, right? It's just if you can do them, great. If you can't, that's okay too. And they leverage the fact that that in some cases, people just want to give their voice and they want their voices heard. And I believe that you should do those studies as much as all of the other ones, because for us, especially as Black consumers, every moment, every chance we have to get our voice in these rooms matters. And so the more we can do that, the better. But for the most part, market research is paid. And so you could be paid anywhere from 50 cents or a quarter a question that you answer on a survey, to $10 for a survey, $25, to when you actually do focus groups, you can get $100, $150, $300. When someone's coming to your home, it could be $500, $800, depending on what it is that you are asked to do, how much time you are asked to do it, and how rare it is to find someone like you out there. It can vary in how much you get paid, but anywhere from probably $1 to $500 is pretty much normal for market research. And I know that's a pretty big range, but it kind of just depends on what it is that you're actually doing a survey on. In so many ways, I feel like we are often made to feel like we are less valuable, like no one really cares. And I think what I love about being in this space is that I am reminded every day about how valuable we are. And I know I'm pretty valuable. Like, I look in the mirror and I feel that way every day. But it is sometimes disheartening when we see what's going on out in the world and how we can be misjudged, misrepresented, mistreated, ignored, and to feel like the world feels that way. And when you get to be in a position that we're in, where we get to speak with these clients who want nothing more than to talk to people who have our experience, who are Black, Hispanic, people of color, who are living a totally different world than honestly most of these people who are in these positions of power live. And they genuinely want to understand that experience so that they can create products and services for us. It makes a difference. It lets me know how powerful we are. Because it doesn't matter to me if they want to create it because they want to make more money. Great, go make more money, as long as you're doing something that makes my life better. Like, then we all win, right? I don't want you to just make something for me that you lose money on, because then that's charity. I want us to all feel like we win. And when I get to do this research and be in this space, it just reminds me that we have so much more power than we ever think that we do. We have so much more opportunity to shape what we see out here, and it belongs to everyone, right? And so when I get frustrated that we have all this opportunity to make a difference, but we don't do something as simple as signing up to do market research, which, by the way, we get paid in most cases to do, it's frustrating. Because the reason that I know we don't sign up is because no one tells us that we have that power. No one knows that you just have to go sign up, be part of a survey, take the survey, and that it actually does influence things. And so we don't do it. And I think that that is the most unfortunate piece. And part of the things that gets frustrating for me when I see us with the lack of representation, or when I see the mistakes that are made by companies and brands and organizations, it is very frustrating. And I think it's most frustrating, like it's frustrating everywhere, but it's most frustrating in like the areas that I think we really, really need that representation, like in healthcare, for example. You know, there are so many diseases that affect us, right, as both patients, but also as caregivers. And there is so much billions if you add up all of the companies that are out there doing healthcare research every year, spent to understand what the experience is like for these patients and for these caregivers. And I'm not talking about, again, like I'm not talking about pharmaceutical research where they're giving you, or clinical trials where they're giving you drugs to try that we worry about if it's safe or not. I'm just talking about understanding what it is like to take care of someone who has cancer, what it is like to be someone who is a diabetic and have to maneuver the world so that they create the right products and services for us. We over-index in so many of these conditions, and they can't find us to give our opinions. And so guess what? They go ask people that don't look like us for their opinions, and they go create products that are really meant for us based on someone else's perspective. And that's not the fault or just the fault of the companies. That's also because we are not there. We don't show up. We're not in the spaces, and we're not in the spaces because we don't know. So the whole purpose of this whole thing is to make sure that we eliminate that excuse, that we know what we can do, where we can go, how we can join the movement and have our voices heard, so we have the power to be able to be part of these discussions. So after you do a survey, it can feel like it just went into this black box. Or sometimes we do a lot of focus groups and people pour their heart out. Maybe we go and we spend a couple of hours in their home and they've told us so much. And it feels like you never hear or see anything again. Maybe you told them to do something and then tomorrow you go out there and it is still not done. And it's very, very frustrating. But let me give you a little bit of insight on what happens after you do your part. So typically, if you were doing something like a survey, so it's an online or on your phone or something like that, where you're answering these questions, there's often a lot of people who will complete that survey. And so when we get all of that data back, we will look at that data and we will start to figure out what makes sense for the companies to do next. So you become part of a bigger picture, right? And let's be clear, like what is happened or what is said in that survey is analyzed, it is understood, and it is acted upon by companies. It might feel like your individual decision didn't matter, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that that work gets acted on. The other thing that happens, so sometimes it's like, what did you see? A lot of times, y'all, what is just as important is what you don't see. So I'm going to give you an example. We had a client the other day who wanted to do some advertising, and they had a new name for the campaign. I won't say what the name is, but they had a new name for the campaign, and it's a product that's often sold, or you see it more in communities of color. And so the name of the campaign had nothing to do with the product. It was just like a really creative, catchy name for the campaign. And we had shared it with lots of different people across different races, ethnicities, etc. And there was a woman who lived in an urban city she was a Black woman, and she said, you know, what bothers me about the name of this is that it has some connotations that make it feel like these neighborhoods are dirty or are damaged in a certain way. And often you only see this product in these neighborhoods. And so it is, I even though it's a really funny, catchy name, I feel a certain way about seeing it there. And she was one person who had this comment, and it was so gratifying to hear because the clients immediately took that one off the table. And so sometimes, like, it's not just what you see, it's the stuff you don't see. And that's the stuff that matters. Like, we don't want to see that stuff out there. We want someone who can give a story, a point of view that they just don't have. This is not their lived experience. The only way they get it is when we tell them that. And so I think I would say, like, those are the two pieces. Those are two ways in which the research and the things that you say might show up. Sometimes it shows up exactly as you say it. Sometimes it's been modified, but definitely part of the decision-making process. And sometimes you don't see it because it was so important that it had to be completely changed, removed, or revamped. So Black voices aren't optional, they're essential for brands to be able to make the decisions in order to create the products and services that we need and that make our lives easier. If you want to be part of the solution, if you want to help if you want to help us by giving your opinions, we just need you to sign up at mahoganyminds.com. The information is in the description. And when you do so, you will be notified about both unpaid and paid research opportunities that bring our voices to the table.